Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Keep the Line Moving, the podcast designed to talk about leadership, life, and inspiration. I'm your host, Chris Gargano, and for episode 87, we're pulling back the layers of leadership. You have found the right podcast at the right time to go in depth on the art and science of leadership with our guest, Heather Maxwell. She has over 15 years' experience as an insights-driven brand builder and entrepreneurial leader with a track record of success in driving growth for Fortune 500 companies. She will explain how she has done that. Let's go back to her childhood, where the foundation is set as a four-sport star. She earns a scholarship in basketball to the University of Indianapolis. She then gets her master's at Notre Dame, her doctorate at the University of Minnesota in sport management and consumer systems psychology. She then, 2 years ago, started a company called Next 5 Team, a sports business focused strategy and insights firm based in the greater Chicago area. They work with sports organizations to achieve their revenue goals through marketing, ticketing, game experience, and sponsorships. We believe in growth mindset and continuous improvement. Every day smarter, says the website of Next 5 Team. Here's their founder, Heather Maxwell, on Keep the Line Moving. Heather, how are you? It is great to see you. I'm so glad you're with us. And getting to know you and listening to your story and how you view the world, and you're always at a quest for getting better in knowledge seeking, continuous learner. You are right there. You would be smiling on a poster of continuous learners. Tell me how valuable that's been throughout your career, right? You know, going to college on a scholarship, the way you went about getting your education is so impressive. Tell us about the philosophy you have with continuous learning.
Well, Chris, it started early. I was always curious about how do people learn and what keeps someone in that space of growth mindset versus being a blocked learner or thinking, well, this is my lot in life and this is my ceiling, because I was never that person. And, I have to think back, and both of my parents, very blue collar, not college educated. And I thought, okay, how do I create an advantage for myself? They forged tremendous paths, really very successful in their own right. So I saw one way to be successful, but there was this other piece, especially through school and through sports, that I thought, I want to learn more. I want to always have the most learning I could possibly can. So leaving from undergrad with my marketing degree, I later went on and earned my master's in applied psychology at the University of Notre Dame. Absolutely loved my time there. And that is where I really got into not only learning, but translating it into the practitioner side of my job. I was working in sports marketing at Notre Dame, and I'm here learning about applied psychology. Like, how do people think? How are they motivated? Why do they do what they do? And that was the big unlock for me. It was this translation of learning into practice, into results. It still gives me goosebumps being able to do that. I left Notre Dame after about 5 years and went on to earn my PhD in sport management at the University of Minnesota. And while I was there, I also was a graduate assistant in the Tucker Center for Research in Girls and Women in Sport. This was the epitome, right? I'm bringing now academic learning, experience in the field, and then taking it up one more level and getting, your doctorate and publishing and kind of doing all the research I wanted to do, it was amazing time. And it just keeps going.
So let's look at this. Undergrad, University of Indianapolis.
Yes.
So you continue straight on to Notre Dame, right? And then you you said something fascinating, which is the human psychology and how we behave and why we do things. So I'm going to turn it on you.
Yeah.
As you connect the dots, and as we all do, hopefully as we get older, when you look back at that transition from undergrad to grad, and then getting into psychology and analyzing our behaviors, what do you think it was about you that had that quest for that specific piece of knowledge that you were after in that specific graduate degree?
That's a great question. I'm not one to learn for learning's sake. For me, it's always about learning something to then apply it. I don't read a lot of fiction. I'm all about nonfiction to the point where one might go, "Do you take a break?" I do, but I really enjoy learning something that then I can apply. So when you think about a master's in applied psychology, it's the perfect marriage of learning and application. So that was really the motivation behind this. And for me, the crux of us as leaders, of us as coaches, of us as people, even in our family roles, our friendship roles, it's all about human motivation. What makes us do what we do? What makes us think what we think? And what's that gap between thinking and doing? That's that's really what interests me a lot.
So in your career, you have combined marketing and insights. That's how you tell the world who you are, a marketing insights professional leader in the space. And you've mentioned this before in calls and talks that we've had off camera and off
Mhm.
recording here, which is that 360 approach. Describe to folks how that has helped you in your career evolution. And then if you choose to say how it helped you in certain jobs or areas or industries that you've been in, please share that with us, please.
Sure. Well, when I think about this 360 approach to, driving growth, creating strategies, and really moving businesses forward, the foundation for me has always been, well, what do we know? So it's starting from a place of what do we know in order to achieve our goals and what do we not know? But the foundation of even that, it's always people, right? We sell to people. We work with people. We work for people. It's always about people. And we're trying to motivate them to do something that we want them to do. Now, that can be leadership within your own team, within your unit and your silo in a cross functional organization. It can be the broader consumer base just out in the world. We're trying to motivate them to do something. And so, in my partnership with marketing teams, sales teams, retailers, sports organizations, it's always been about what do we know? What behavior are we trying to change? And how can we best motivate that person? And that can be with the product or service that we're offering. It's oftentimes with the communication related to that product or service. But to me, the underpinnings of how we do that successfully has always been insights and understanding people and understanding the business context, that landscape. Because once again, we go back to the 360. Sure, we as a business can make the best plan ever. But like they say, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face, right? And that's when your competition comes in. So how do you respond? You have to be able to be agile and pivot. And the more you know about that landscape, the better you can respond.
So, who are you working for and with right now? Tell us that. And then I want to dive down into something you said because what you're saying right now, what I'm hearing, and tell me,
Mhm.
correct me if I'm wrong,
Okay.
you want marketing insights. You want to know tendencies of not just the consumer, the human being on
Mhm.
the other end of the screen or the phone or the tweet or the X, whatever the heck. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So it's almost like compassionate marketing, right? Because you're considering the whole person. But I want to get back to that. Tell
Yep.
folks what you're working on right now, and I want to blast this clear so everyone could know ways in which to engage with you and what you're doing.
Sure. Sure. There's two ways or two things that I'm building right now, if you will. First off, I am building Next Five team. We're a group that works to build the fan bases with sport organizations, and that is really about building attendance, but also the fan base. I think that in-person attendance, especially in this fast-changing landscape of sports, is so important. I mean, we saw games in COVID where there were cardboard cutouts in the stands. Not so fun. Not a great environment for the players, the coaches, or even those watching the game. So, driving in-person attendance through insight-driven strategies, a big part of what Next Five team is doing. And then the other way is I'm still working with Fortune 500 companies with their insight efforts to close that gap, right? We have this growth goal. We're right here. We have some knowledge gaps. We need to better understand consumers. A lot of times these companies know the what, They know their sales, they know their share, they know who's growing faster, who's growing slower. They know even the frequency of how often those products are being purchased. But a lot of times the why is missing. Yeah, but why are they switching brands? Well, why are they coming to our category? Why are they leaving our category? And that's with Iris research and strategy. So we are working primarily in qualitative and then also doing some larger global and domestic projects to help our clients.
How often does a company that might be losing consumers, right?
Mhm.
Fans, customers, how often do you think the collective leadership folks think about the why? And rather than just trying to, you can't outthink a human being, right? We just can't, right? As much as far as AI has come and all the analytics,
Yeah.
so you have to have conversation, right? You have to figure out the why, and sometimes it's not obvious. You have to
Mhm.
pay attention to tendencies and read about other industries and what they're experiencing. Listen, this is your industry, not mine. What do you see in senior leaders in a general sense that sometimes get in the way of that finding
Mm.
out and that curiosity towards the why?
You know, I have worked for tremendous leaders, General Mills and Conagra brands, especially. They were very consumer centric. They had processes in place where, leadership teams were expected to have the answers, not only the what, but the why. And that was really building this sound business plan. Little did I know, that is and can be a unique characteristic of leaders. I had a recent chapter in my career where insights really weren't valued. It was more of a action bias. Just go, 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 go. Even if you ran 100 miles an hour, but you ran into the wall, well, we were running fast. And, it caused a lot of churn. So we could move really quickly, but we didn't have the consumer, in our sights. We didn't really understand the consumer as well as we needed to. So there was a lot of action. There was a lot of selling, but there was also a lot of, ooh, okay, that was a miss. And there was a lot of trying to figure out what went wrong. Well, if you didn't have a sound strategy in the beginning, it makes it tough when things go wrong to start to do, call it the postmortem, right? When you're explaining to senior leadership, well, oh, here's what we did and why, but it didn't go as planned. Well, we had a big knowledge gap out of the gate. So some of it comes down to company culture and their philosophy, what they value. Sometimes it comes down to really a few senior leaders who control every decision. And so what do they value? One thing you mentioned about, I'll call it like cross-pollination of learning and processes. That's been one of the most valuable skills or experiences I've been able to bring. We have a question. How are we going to answer it best with our time and our budget that we have? Okay, let's make the plan, let's do it. And then we hold hands and make the best decision that we can. But when you can cross pollinate learning across different industries, you start to see common threads and you can help teams accelerate their efforts. You can go faster because you've seen more and you've had those wins and losses to go, ooh, been down that path. I see some similarities here. We just may want to have a watch out. So it's been really great to integrate all that learning and help a range of teams. Mhm.
I can see and feel and hear that you have respect not only for the customer, fan, or consumer, but also for the folks, the stakeholders in the room per se, right? And you
Absolutely.
understand that there's complexities with each. That's been the nature of this discussion today. So I
Mhm.
will ask you, somebody coming up in the business or somebody, let's be honest here, senior leader, mid-level leader that's having some difficulties now. The world is changing and perhaps forgive me here, but they're set in their ways, right? And they see
Yeah.
that, hey, I got to expand my knowledge. I got to do something here. Let's provide for them. How would you say, hey, listen, you need to understand soft skills?
Yeah.
It's like how important that is to have the influence to couple your knowledge, your insights, your analytics, and your metrics with the ability to have everyone hear it and take action accordingly. How would you respond to
Mm.
that?
I think you're spot on, Chris. And this kind of goes with a thread for this whole discussion around seeking to understand and not just to push your agenda. So there's something I'm constantly talking to my team about, and it's the difference between being relational versus transactional. Okay. Relational is that seeking to understand what motivates that person. What is their language? And when I say language, I had a boss, and I'll say boss. I really won't say leader. I'll say boss. Okay. But he was so motivated by only money, only money. Show me the dollars and cents. So I knew if I had just one slide that showed what we would need to invest and what we would get and kind of my rationale or the underpinnings of that, that was what the whole conversation was about. But I knew his language, and that's how we were going to talk. Now, in order to take that project and then go get it done, get the cross-functional team to be motivated to implement this, to spend their time, that required different languages because there's 5 other people working on this project. And someone over here, it may be more about, appreciation, showing gratitude. That was more of their language. And so everybody has a language. Everybody has at their core, like what really motivates them the most. It's not the only thing, but I think the more that you can seek to understand others and the more that you can get to know someone, their background, what they enjoy, what lights them up, what dims them a bit, you can really work even better with them. So the seeking to understand is super important.
Just a ton of wisdom there. But don't think you got that the one thing by me, because I heard it, because this is
Okay.
what this podcast is about. You were going to say you had a leader, but you went
Mm,
back to saying you had a boss. And that individual was consumed with money only.
yeah.
I understand that. There's 8 billion of us. We're all motivated differently. You just articulated it fantastic. You were right on point. What is their language? How do they respond? What lights them up? Does this person just need gratitude? Does that person need a lunch out? Does that person need a raise? We all have different ways of motivating.
Mhm,
However, you went back to boss.
mhm.
Isn't the leader slash boss is responsible for understanding that team
Yeah.
and not making it just about themselves, which is to say, I'm motivated by money. All of you must facilitate my need for us to produce revenue. You see where I'm going with this? Isn't
Sure.
that's why I'm hypothesizing here. That's why you did not call that person a leader. Is that accurate?
That is very accurate. Oh man, I worked for one of the best leaders in, I would say, college athletics in Coach Muffet McGraw at Notre Dame. Amazing. Amazing. She treated everyone fairly. Everyone knew the rules, but everyone's different. And so with each person, she really understood what motivated them. She understood how she could get more out of each person, have them reach higher heights by pushing them. But you have to know that person to know what buttons will push. It's not a one size fits all. And so, to work for a leader who's had that much success and see what good really looks like, everyone plays a part. And, it's something that I've stressed with my teams over the years too is that we is always greater than me. And if that's not the case, then something's off. Okay. Because collectively, we have more skills. We have a broader range of skills and also a deeper sense of expertise. And that's how you should build out teams. Now, with a boss man, it was more micromanaging, it was more not understanding that people had their expertise, right? It was hovering, it was barking, it was yelling, it was you didn't want to do more for that person. For Coach McGraw, you wanted to exceed her expectations because she was invested in you, you were invested in the team, and this was bigger than all of us. And I'm not talking about just the players and coaches, I'm talking about all the support staff that makes a team, the broader team, succeed. It takes everybody. It takes everybody. And so with the boss, it's more of they ask, you do, there's less back and forth, there's less investment in one another. It's much more transactional and it's much more one way. And once people on your team feel like a cog, cost of goods sold, you're just a line item on a P&L, that's when you have people take a step back and go, oh, I see what's going on here. Okay. It's just transactional. And once people feel that way, then they realize, well, I can just be replaced tomorrow. And this really isn't more than just to show up and check the box and head home. And that is dangerous. That creates a more toxic and less motivating environment.
I agree with you 100%. And I think dangerous is a very appropriate word. So here's one of the many reasons I'm doing what I'm doing now, which is leadership coaching, right?
Yeah.
Which I just absolutely love. But this isn't about me. This is about these people that you're talking about right now, where they view people on their team as cogs in a wheel or whatever. I'm going to micromanage them. I don't trust them. None of the elements that we're talking about in the previous part of this conversation as we get analytical here. So my question to you is this: do they not know what they're doing? Is it an unaware approach to leadership? Or is it, I know, I don't care, I'm hard charging, I got to put my own kids through college, etc. Whatever their reasons are, is it
Yeah.
a combination of ego? What have you seen? Because here's why I asked this, Heather.
Mhm.
And then I want to hear your response, because I can't wait to hear your response, to be honest with you, which is this: we all have a leadership legacy.
Yeah.
But there's also micro legacies. When you leave a job, it's over. What are they going to say about you when you were at that job? Hey, they were awesome. They taught me, they empowered me. Or, yeah, they were all right, or
Mhm.
even the worst. That person was selfish. I don't even want to get into it. Or they don't even say anything. How
Mhm.
much does that mean to you? What those words are? You don't live for others' approval, but you also, like you just said, have to be a teammate, empower, grow together, achieve greatness.
Mhm.
So my question to you is, are they unaware of how they're impacting others?
In my experience, one, I think people tend to use, they have a bias for like what works. Well, this has worked for me. And, I made it here and I made it there and I keep going. And they'll use what works. It's almost like bringing a hammer to everything, right? Well, I hammered that screw. It didn't work quite well, but I got it down. Okay, well, we're never going to get that screw out now, but congratulations. Yes, you did get it into the wood. If you don't seek to understand, like we talked about earlier, and you're just using that one tool, that one way of doing things, you'll reach a ceiling. And so I think until people feel pain of some sort, there's rarely change. And that could be from them being let go, saying, we're going to go in a different direction, or from enough turnover that they've had to do too many roles and it's impacting their life, their quality of life. Until they feel pain, I don't think there is a moment of recognition. I really don't. Chris, I think for those that value a legacy on any level, that you made an impact again on people's lives, right? You're talking about impact on people's lives. If you don't care about people, you might not care about your legacy. So, this guy was more of a scorch the earth, bleach every crevice of any kind of empathy and care. So, I don't think he cares about his legacy. I think it's more, I've got a big house and a lot of money, and so what? I don't really care what you say. And that's okay. That's one way to live, right? It's not the way I want to live.
There's a term at my NYU class that we study called radical interdependence.
Mhm.
And that's not just in business. What it means is we all need each other. We're all connected. Just look at society. If you're driving on the freeway, we need each other to do what's right, or it'll be utter chaos. There'll be constant collisions, right?
Yeah.
Personally, I've just never understood that. How we don't see how if we empower and take care of, coach and mentor, we will get better results and people will leave work every day feeling a certain way. And then when they come in tomorrow, they'll feel another way. And the productivity will be off the charts because they feel that way. And you've helped create that. When you step on people, you don't have that. You're always fighting from behind to get productivity
Mm.
because you're thought of in a certain way that is not interdependent
Mhm.
based.
Yeah, I mean the whole, I'll just call it stick motivation, right? We're gonna hit you with the
Yes.
stick. Like that
Yes.
doesn't work for long. I think the challenge with all of this is if a place pays well enough, there's always, it seems anyway, someone waiting in line, to take their shot for a few years, and they'll, chalk it up as a lucrative chapter that was felt like hell on earth. And I've heard that a lot. Um, but I think when you do find that place where, you're earning good money, but you're motivated every day and it truly feels like a team. I don't like the term family at work. I For all the reasons that have been shared, online. I think, but you still need to be a good team. You need to feel plugged in. Humans need connectivity. They need that interdependence that you're talking about. And at some point, I think the people that don't quite get it will get it, because they'll reach out for someone because they need something, they need help, and it'll be difficult for them to get it because the bridges have been burned and the relationships were never built. It was just transactional. And it's those are tough moments, I would think.
Yes. And last point here, and then we'll go to all-star moments. All those things are justified, like going in for the big payday and going in for the whatever reason, and I'm going to do this for my resume. Those are all rational ways of thinking for those folks that think that way. I would just have one caveat, and I've realized this as I've gotten older, which is we spend so much time at these places. This
Mm,
isn't 2 hours of your day.
yeah.
This is a majority of your day. So it's just disproportionate as much as we work nowadays at what we're doing. Fair?
Yeah, it's a lot of time, right?
Right.
To barely survive than to thrive. Like, it's a lot of time.
Yes.
And piece together your career, that's fine. You get into some of these different roles and you can't tell from the outside what it's truly going to be like. But being aware of what's going on, what are you learning? What are you getting from this experience? How are you contributing? Make that place a little better before you leave. But sometimes you have to look around and go, yeah, this is going to be a shorter chapter in my career than maybe something else. And that's okay. You got a lot of chapters in your career now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well said. All right. You ready for the all-star moments?
As ready as I'll ever be.
Here we go. These are first thought, best thought, quick, whatever comes to your mind. Here we go. How do you deal with adversity?
Ooh, take a deep breath. I take a deep breath. I look at my options and pick the best way in, but can't give up.
How do you give yourself fuel?
Oh, this is unfair. I think working out is my healthy version of fuel. I love that for body and mind, but also like I like sugar. So fruit by the foot in the afternoon gives me some fuel to get going too.
3, never give up. What does that mean to you?
Persistence. It means persistence and believing.
The value of collaboration. What is it?
It's always more than my effort individually.
You've done a lot of hiring over the course of your career. What are the characteristics that you look for in an ideal candidate?
Mm. Curiosity in the case that they're willing to ask questions, and the fortitude to go figure things out on their own, a little bit of autonomy, and really just a sense of optimism.
Describe yourself as a leader in one sentence.
Bold.
All right, I'll give you this one, even though we talked about it at length. What's the difference between a manager and a leader?
A leader inspires people to be their best, and a manager makes sure things gets done.
Nicely said. Heather, this has been fantastic. I cannot thank you enough.
Loved it, Chris. Thank you so much for having me on.
And we thank Heather very much for being on the show. I have 3 takeaways from this conversation. It has come up several times, my first takeaway, and that is the value, as Heather said, of having a growth mindset versus having a blocked mindset. What is a growth mindset? You just heard us talking about it, right? Getting better, believing you can get better, being open minded to new ideas so you can get better. How do people think? How do they learn? That's what Heather and I talked about, and that is valuable. We also talked about, in my second takeaway, being agile and being able to pivot despite what metrics or numbers are saying. Sometimes, yes, we can get all the information, but we still have to have the open mind to be able to pivot on a decision. Valuable part of the conversation as well. And number 3, the importance of in-person attendance as part of Heather's strategy at Next 5 Team, right? Look at organizations, teams, and their success with the energy and enthusiasm of a crowd, and understanding who those folks are and how can we help them get to these ball games, matches, what have you. A wonderful conversation. Heather was a fantastic guest. Hope you have a great week, everybody. We'll have another great guest for you next week on Keep the Line Moving. Every week, you hear guests on this podcast talk about some of their biggest leadership challenges. As a leader, you want to make an impact on those you lead and reach your organization's goals, while also optimizing your time management. Wherever you are in your leadership journey, we could all use some help. This is what we focus on with our group and individual coaching services. To book a call or get more information, email me directly at chrisg@garganoleadership.com or visit our website at garganoleadership.com. For our podcast and video producer, Jack Radutsky, and our marketing coordinator, Savin Narwal, have a great week, everybody.